Welcome to Behind the Muscle Podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro. Today's guest is Justin Jacoby. Justin, welcome back to the podcast, man.
Hey, Quentin, thanks so much for having me back on for a third time now.
For sure, man. So excited to catch up with you. I think the last time that we caught up was post-Nationals after you turned pro. So today I just kind of want you to catch us up with kind of like from the time that you got your pro card, kind of that first week or two after we caught up after Nationals. Why don't you just catch us up to speed? How's your off season going? How's life changed? Where are you at with, kind of your training, things like that? And then I want to kind of get into some coaching talk, if you don't mind. So kind of just catch us up where you're at personally, Justin, please.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, personally with my bodybuilding, the goal after Nationals, after just kind of getting, health markers and everything in check, just like, very standard stuff. We did our normal procedure there. Obviously having Revive in my backyard is very helpful because I can literally pop in and get my bloods done anytime that I want, which is very helpful. And we've been utilizing that pretty regularly. So, Matt and I kind of started our first real off-season push with bringing calories up and pushing to really add the size starting very early February. It was within the first week of February. And we've really just ended that push now because we did another round of blood work in July just to make sure that things were good. He wanted to kind of consider potentially taking just kind of backing off a little bit. And I didn't want to take any breaks at that point because I was still in a really good groove. For me, muscle growth is not something that happens easily, obviously. I've been bodybuilding since I was 20 years old and I'm 28 now, and I'm not like a big guy by any means. There's amateurs at Revive that are much bigger than I am. So obviously I know that that's my shortcoming as a bodybuilder, is needing as much tissue as I can pack onto my frame. So when I was in a really good groove there in the past, I would have just been like, yep, okay, whatever you say. And I guess almost being a little bit more knowledgeable just in my own self within my bodybuilding and my body, being more self-aware, I just was like, hey, can we run bloods, make sure things are good? And if everything's good, can we keep going? And so we just kind of kept on the gas a little bit, and things have been phenomenal. We still have a very modest approach to things. It's more the food. Matt has really taught me how to eat in a surplus for long periods of time without getting burnt out on it. And in the past, I wasn't able to do that. And it's because I just would not allow myself off of traditional bodybuilding foods, potatoes, rice, creamy rice, and then, your basic food sources, from a protein standpoint, obviously dietary fats. This off season, I've utilized other things. I've utilized juices. I've drank a lot of calories. For instance, I'll probably drink anywhere from 100 to 125 grams of carbs worth of Gatorade every day. And so, I'll just do Gatorade powder throughout the day. And I guess I'm lucky in the sense that my blood glucose levels always stay relatively low for how much food that I eat on a daily basis. And I've just gotten better at that. There's always things that we can get better at as a bodybuilder. I've improved my training yet again. And there's, you would think that if you're 8 years into bodybuilding, how are you still getting better at training? Shouldn't this all be pretty basic at this point? And it is to an extent. Yes, basic movements are still the same, but mind muscle connection for me has never been something that I've actually been very good at. It's always been a big struggle. My first several years of training, going back to football days, was simply move weight A to B, be as explosive as you possibly can. And that's what I did. So shifting into my early years of bodybuilding, it was just, I didn't feel things the same way that I do now. Now I can feel everything. And that's why I feel like this has been easily my best off season to date. I'm currently holding 225 pretty easily with minimal fluctuations. And I've been as heavy as 227 and a half, in the morning time, slightly over 230 nighttime weight. But this is this is still a weight that I've held before, as I've been 225 before, like last off season, believe it or not. I tipped the scale at the heaviest at 225. Now, granted, I touched it for like a couple of days, and then it started to come back down. And as soon as Matt, started to clean up my diet in the beginning, or at kind of like in the beginning of July for our nationals prep, we more or less just kind of cleaned things up. I dropped 10 pounds within the first like 10 days. So that quickly came down to about, really a starting point for prep last year at about 210. And, I've put the pictures together, and they're actually on my Instagram, of where I was just a couple weeks ago, or I think it was a week ago, right, Ben? It was like a week ago. Yeah. And then my peak off-season weight of that last off-season last year. And there's just a profoundly different look. Obviously, I'm much bigger now. I've really increased the size of my legs, as that was, some feedback from Steve that I got after the show, was to get as much quad sweep as I possibly can pack onto my legs. And obviously still trying to get more, but the look has really changed. So it's not just so much of a chasing the scale, whereas Matt did give me a goal number for us to reach, where if we maintain this composition and can hit and hold 230, we'll be in a really good spot for, whatever show I end up doing next season for my pro debut. So, that kind of brings us up to date, really. I mean, for a while after nationals, I was training with Nick Gloff, and I learned a ton from him. He's been excellent. He's a great friend of mine too. And when I see him in the gym now, we just chop it up. He's a super nice guy, one of the smartest, if not the smartest person I think I've ever met when it comes to training and like just exercise science in general. He holds 2 degrees. I mean, I have picked his brain so many times. He's helped me recover from a couple of injuries, even recently. My rotator cuff was really affecting my ability to do any pressing for chest or shoulders, to be honest with you, without pretty significant pain. And he basically devised a program to just kind of fix some of my mobility issues that was causing some of my discomfort. So for about 3 months post nationals, I was with him every day. Then my competition season started to pick up for coaching, and I was traveling so much that the ability for me to stay on a schedule with him was going to affect his training. And he had started prep at that point, so I didn't want to be a burden to him by any means. So he, started doing his own thing again, and then I started doing my own thing again. And as of late, since Emondine, I've posted about her on my Instagram, that's my girlfriend, she's from Switzerland. She's a WPD pro as well. Since she's been here with me and Stuart when we got back from Texas Pro, I've trained with her pretty much exclusively every day, with, a couple oddball workouts where I've gone on my own. And we've definitely changed our style up a bit. I've always been very low volume, progressive overload, and lift heavy weights. Now, obviously, over the years, I've gotten better at not only being able to utilize those heavy weights to feel the muscle working, but in the past it was, just move weight A to B. And now, actually, if I'll be honest, I'm lifting some of the lighter loads than I've lifted in the past probably 3 years. Like when I look back on some of my old training footage, I was moving much heavier weight than I am now. But how I do everything now is much more methodical, and there's a lot more strategy behind it. And I'm also getting older too. So I've also noticed that when I do feel like just throwing some weight around with like reckless abandonment, I get hurt. Kind of like my elbow right now. I've had like some tricep pain for the past month because Jordan Wise came down to train arms with me. He lives in Daytona, so he's only a couple hours away now. So we like to meet up, and I get to look at him and whatnot and get some training in. And I was trying to keep up with him because honestly, he's super strong on arms. We were training arms, and I tried to keep up and I couldn't. And I kind of injured myself a little bit. So I can't do some of the things that I used to do anymore. So we've just adapted a lot more blood volume work. Not so much as far as total volume from a working set standpoint. We're not going crazy. It's not like 20 plus working sets per workout, but just spending more time trying to fill up the blood with as much muscle fill up the muscle with as much blood as possible. Excuse me. And we still have movements where it's, hey, let's move weight on this. Like, let's do some like heavier stuff. Let's tear down some deeper muscle fibers. And then we have some more surface level stuff where we're just trying to fill it up with blood. But it's been working. And the intensity amplifiers that we've been doing a lot more of, like getting kind of back to when I used to do DC training, which I loved, more of the rest pause. We throw an FST7 set in usually once or twice on like every workout now. cluster sets, which I had never done before. Honestly, the first time I ever did that was when I worked out with Brett Wilkin, training like legs and chest the couple times I've jumped in with him. And then she's a fan of those as well. So just, it's very different for me, and I'm learning, which I'm loving. And I'm having some of my clientele do that and try this out as well. So it's parlaying into like my bodybuilding, but also into my coaching as well, because I very much use myself as a guinea pig for things that I, will utilize with them. Coaching is very anecdotal. We can do a lot of coaching off of the research and the science and what works on paper, but I've done this enough times and I've had enough people compete now that like not everything that makes sense and should work on paper is always works in practice. So that's kind of, something that we've been doing, and it's been benefiting everybody, myself, her, and my clientele too. So that kind of brings us up to now. I mean, we have no more traveling for a little while, which is great because this year has been nothing but travel for me. And I'm going out to Texas for a show that I have a couple of athletes in, as well as to see my good buddy Justin Mahaley compete, and Cameron Cheek, who's coaching him, will be out there as well. So it'll be nice to get that whole group together and just be able to hang out and support each other for a show. Then after that, I'll have nationals and then the Olympia shortly after that. And then I'm done until early next year when it starts up all over again.
Okay, awesome. Now, before we get deeper into some coaching talk, Justin, I want to just ask you a few questions about, yourself and some of the things that you mentioned. Now,
yeah.
First of all, I want to go back to when you earned your IFBB Pro card at Nationals. I just remember, you coming on before Nationals and after Nationals, when you were just like most people, they're just a kid in a candy store, right? Like it's such a huge accomplishment. It's something that a lot of people will never accomplish. But do you feel like, now that you are really, as I see on Instagram, I've had several of your clients on, the podcast and stuff like that, as you are growing as a bodybuilder, no pun intended, but and also growing as a coach, do you feel like when you got that pro card and as you're moving forward as an athlete and as a coach, do you feel like that's given you some sort of, has it solidified you in any way? Or do you feel like that has really given you a boost in terms of, self-confidence and who you are and what you want to accomplish as an athlete and a coach?
So it's definitely solidified now because this year I've attended more pro shows. So I've been in and around the pro level of bodybuilding a lot more this year. Prior to winning my pro card, yes, I had attended pro shows and I had been around pros, and, they were obviously impressive and they stick out. But since getting it, and it's now late September now. Yes, I've been in and around it a lot more. And, I was at the Arnold, and, obviously I was helping Ariel Kadar, and, she won. So being around there, her and that level of athleticism that she possesses, as well as, getting a literal front row seat to watch the men compete as well. Brett Wilkin is down here now. I've trained with him. I'm in and around him. So it's definitely solidified now from an athletic standpoint. It makes me nervous. So I'm definitely a lot more nervous now. Like I will be probably more nervous going into my pro debut than it was going into nationals. And the reason why is because I knew what I had I knew what I was bringing to nationals. I was very confident. I had worked really hard to, improve my physique since, the previous show that I did, which was, 2019 USA's. And I also knew that I had Matt in my corner, and I'll be the first one to say that I think he's the best coach in the world. And when he told me, when he looked at me about 2 days out, we were at Kissimmee Muscle. I just made weight, and we were getting our last final pump workout in as we were starting to put the food back in. And I was getting kind of angry because I was hungry and I was ready to leave. Like I had finished my workout and I didn't drive. I was with other people. So I kind of was at the mercy of them. And I was my fuse was running short. And he said, buddy, just calm down. And then I posed for him, And he told me again, he's like, just relax, man, you're going to win. And as soon as he told me that, because I don't know if you guys know this about Matt or his coaching style, but I was just at his house, and his wife even said this too. And I'll paraphrase what she said. She said, if words of affirmation is your love language and is how you need to be reassured, then Matt might not be the coach for you. It's a lot of tough love, and it's not a lot of like, oh man, you look crazy. You don't get that very often from him at all. I think I even told him as a response to that, like literally just on Sunday, I said, I can probably say off the top of my head, there were 2 times in my last prep that you said that I look good. So, it is what it is, but it means a lot more when you hear that. So the confidence going into nationals was already pretty high. And I felt good about what I was bringing. And then when he told me that, it was like at an all-time high. My stress immediately came down to the point where it's like, all right, I'm good. Like, I don't need to do anything at this point. Everything's done. All the workouts are done. It's just to eat food now and rest. This is a little bit different story. I watched the 212 guys compete at Tampa. I watched them compete in Texas as I was there for both shows, because I had athletes in in both shows, and it was impressive. Kareth is a buddy of mine, actually. So getting to see him, and I stood next to him a couple times. He sat next to me when we watched the open guys compete in Tampa. Great guy, by the way. He looked fucking insane. And I'm just like, damn, I don't look like that. So I'm like, I don't want to go and get my ass kicked, but I'm also going into my rookie season with no expectations. I'm just going to come and try and bring, again, another new best of my own. And this is something that I have to tell my athletes too, very regularly. If you're hyper focused on placings and if you feel like you're going to win or not, then you're going to likely have a really hard time here. This is going to be a very difficult sport for you, because you're going to lose a lot more often than you're going to win, especially for people who end up getting their pro cards. For some people, the last show they ever win is their pro card, and shit, dude, some people get second place pro cards, so they didn't even win. You know what I mean? But regardless, if you can mentally have the outlook that it's not about, and people like always like say this, I'm not coming for second, or I'm not prepping for second. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Like, no one's prepping for second. You're coming in to bring your absolute best. I would much rather say that than saying I'm coming to win, because I think that that's like a very unrealistic thing for most people to say. In any given show, there's a handful or a couple of guys that really are going to be pushing for the win, and the rest are going to be gunning for second, third, fourth, whatever, and then there's the guys that are like never going to crack a first call out, and it is what it is. But for me, within my bodybuilding, I've already surpassed what I thought I could do when I initially started out. I started competing because I loved working out, and I went to a buddy's show and I fell in love with it. And I said, I've got to go and do that. And I did it the next year. I literally competed at that show the very next year. And I won my class. So for me, it's like, and Matt's given me a vote of confidence too, saying he's like, dude, if you go all in on this and you go all in on yourself as an athlete, I really think that you have what it takes to be a good pro. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know what a good pro means. Does that mean making first call outs at pro shows? If so, then great. That's amazing. That is being good. You are good if you make first call outs in the pro leagues. That's very competitive. So for me, like I'm obviously nervous, but at the same time, I'm excited. It's a whole new set of challenges. By next year, when I compete, I'll be 29. So I still feel like I'm relatively young in the sport. I think the last time that I was on your podcast, I said I wanted to compete for another 10 years. Well, that would put me into my late 30s. There's a lot of guys doing really, really well in their mid and late 30s, and Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler were winning Olympias in their 40s, and Dexter was winning in his 50s. So it's like, you're not over. It's an old man's game, in my opinion, because it takes so long to just develop that much muscle. So, like, God willing, if I don't have any injuries and I can keep growing, don't have any issues with health, which I never have, and hopefully never will. But it's just another opportunity for me to be able to compete, which I love. So I just love the competition aspect of it. Go up there and give it my best and see if I can't fight for a first call out, and from there, then let the cards fall where they may.
Yeah, awesome, man. Have you found it difficult, Justin, to balance being a full-time bodybuilder and a full-time coach? And how do you do it? Because from my perspective, looking on the outside in, it would be pretty tough, because you're as a bodybuilder, you've got to be so hyper focused on yourself, but then you also got to be, as a coach, hyper focused on your clients and your athletes. So share a little bit about that from your perspective.
I'm glad you asked that, because the answer is yes, it's very difficult and I do struggle with it. If I'm being perfectly honest, I feel like my ceiling as a coach is much higher than my ceiling as an athlete. And honestly, if I wasn't going to be a bodybuilding coach, I would have been a coach in some other aspect. You know, I played college football, and honestly, my dream job was to coach football for a living. And before that, it was to play in the NFL. And then I quickly realized that wasn't going to happen. So then it turned into trying to be a football coach. And I played running back, so I would have wanted to have been a running backs coach. You know, I wouldn't have wanted to be like a head coach or anything like that. I would have wanted to work with my position, and maybe that would have changed, but I would have wanted to work with my guys and just create amazing running backs. And obviously I went a different route. I got into bodybuilding, and now I can help other bodybuilders. And that's what I love, dude. I have like 25 people in prep right now, and everyone looks crazy. And it's just fun to be able to create awesome bodybuilders, because that's what it feels like you're doing. Obviously they're the ones doing the work, but if all things stay the same and they all just give me their best effort, then I pretty much can almost guarantee them that they're all going to change, and they're all going to look way better than they previously have looked. That's the goal, is to always just come back better every time. So that's what I love, and that's where my passion has shifted. If you asked me that 5 years ago, I would have been like, no, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm all in on bodybuilding. I'll coach on the side maybe a little bit, but now I'm so competitive. And when I bring athletes to shows, I want them to be like, oh shit. That's what I want them to say. Like, just the same way that I know when Matt shows up at a show and he has, you know, a slew of people that he's bringing to nationals or USAs or North Americans or whatever, I want everyone to be like, oh shit, Matt Jansen is here. Like, his athletes are going to be good. Just like, and I want that same thing for myself and for all the guys on our team. You know what I mean? Because we've got Berzakot, we're bringing more coaches on, and it's just like, that's what I want within Camp Jansen. And it's going to come to a point where we're all going to have a slew of people in each show under all of us. And then we all can sit together at the show. We can support each other. We can build what we can build within Camp Jansen. Just this, we want it to be like the Nick Saban, like Bill Belichick type of environment. Obviously we have Matt, who is the top of the cream of the crop. And then it just kind of, comes down. I mean, think about college football with Nick Saban. Kirby Smart used to work for him. Lane Kiffin used to work for him. I could name, other people, but I feel like that kind of names enough people. It just is like this pyramid down of all these people who have worked underneath this amazing best person to ever do it. And again, I mentioned, I think Matt's the best in the world. So that's what's coming. And that's like where my passion is. So yes, for me, it's definitely difficult. When I travel for shows, I'm not focused on myself. I'm focused on the athlete. I always lose weight. I have a hard time making time to go and work out because I check on my athletes after every meal. So it's hard for me to sneak away and get a quick workout in when I know that I have to check on an athlete in another hour after they eat this meal. So for me, it's just a matter of, making the most of the time when I'm not traveling, which is why I mentioned that beforehand. Like, I get to be a little selfish with my time. I get to focus on me. And it's just in time. I'm focused on me and my bodybuilding. But when I travel for this show in November, yes, it'll be very similar. I'll do the best that I can. I'm getting better at it every time that I do it, but it's about the athletes. And, I'll get a workout in here and there, but, I basically will usually just train like 5 to 6 days in a row leading into a show when I'm traveling. So that way I don't feel as bad if I miss a couple of workouts. And it is what it is. Coaching pays my bills, and that's not something that I am ever going to take for granted, because this is my absolute dream job. I get to live my dream every single day, and I'm the happiest guy there is being able to do that. Do I have other professional endeavors that I would like to get into down the road someday? Yes. But this is like the main thing that I've always wanted to do and be known for. So I don't take it lightly, which is why I invest so much of my time and so much of me into all of my athletes. And I hope that they can say that that they feel that way about, you know, their service for me.
What do you feel like in terms of, we're going to transition kind of fully into some coaching talk now to finish it up. But what do you feel like Justin has flipped that switch for you in terms of your passion really lying in the competitive side of bodybuilding for yourself, but now that passion is in coaching and helping others reach their bodybuilding goals, dreams, aspirations? Like, where does that passion come for you in terms of coaching?
I mean, I don't want anyone to think that I'm not passionate about my own bodybuilding. I definitely am. And when I'm in the gym and my music is on, that's me time. My phone is on do not disturb. Don't bother me with shit. I'm working out. I will get back to you. I promise. It's the 2 hours, an hour and a half of each day that I'm a little bit selfish with my time. But beyond that, I'm pretty much always accessible. And the switch for me is that I'm not on stage very often. You know, again, if anybody has ever followed my career even remotely closely, they realize I don't do a lot of shows. I compete, I do well, I take the feedback that I need, and then I spend plenty of time trying to make the improvements. I'm not somebody who puts on muscle super fast. So for me to do 4 or 5 month off seasons is not enough. I need time to be able to make plenty of progress within my physique. It's just it's the genetic hand that I was dealt. So I think the reason it's switched so much is because I get that competition like fire from my athletes way more often because they are competing more often than I am. When you have, you know, when you prep 50 people over the course of a year, that's 50 opportunities you get to compete. You know, when I played football, we got to play 12 games. That's only 12 times a year that you get to compete. No, yeah, you're in competition every day in practice and in the gym, you know, when you're, you know, maybe competing for a starting spot or whatnot. Yes, I get that. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about like on stage, game day scenario competitions. That's what I love. And I love the peaking process. I've really gotten a lot better at that this year. And that's been the coolest and most fun part about it. You know, and my athletes have been wildly successful this year from that. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for the opportunities that have come my way as a result of that. You know, like everybody starts off somewhere, you know what I mean? Like you don't start off with working with Olympians. You start off working with your guy in your local gym who wants to get in better shape. And that's what I did too. Now, granted, I feel like my rise to being at the level that I'm at now, at least what the level that I feel like I'm at, because again, I am confident in my abilities as a coach. It maybe has happened faster than for others. But again, I just attribute that to being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, and taking advantage of every opportunity that's come my way. I really haven't squandered much. I've been on a hot streak with the opportunities that have come my way, and I can say that confidently. And I just feel like the reason why I feel like good fortune and good luck come to those that are like overly prepared. So the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I work really, really hard when it comes to my athletes. And I'm constantly chopping it up and bouncing ideas off of some of my other coaches that I'm close with. Obviously, both Matt, Spurzakai, and Jansen, Cameron Cheek, Justin Haley. These are guys that I will routinely pepper with questions and get their thoughts on things. Be like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm thinking we're gonna be doing in the near future. What do you think of this trajectory? And I just listen. And I take feedback and I apply what I think is going to be conducive for the success of that athlete. So, and that's what I think makes for that. That's what I think this all comes down to. You know, I mean, you learn from those who have done it before you. You know, like we stand on the shoulders of giants, but that doesn't mean that I think I'm tall. You know what I mean? I don't think that I'm tall just because I'm standing on somebody else's shoulders. I'm just trying to reach a higher level, building on what they have taught us. You know, like Lyle McDonald has, you know, a great book about rapid fat loss. And he obviously learned that early on, either through anecdotal evidence, trials and tribulations, whatever. And so many of us coaches that are like, you know, brainiacs or nerds when it comes to like liking that stuff. I won't call myself a brainiac by any means, but I am a little bit of a bodybuilding nerd. And we've all read some of the things that he's done and things that make sense. And if we attribute it to, or we apply that to our athletes, it works. So it's just learning from those that came before us and learning from people who are also still doing things and what they have done. So the switch is, to a long way to answer a short question, is the switch came from the competition aspect of me loving to compete. I like winning and I want my athletes to win. So like I have gone so far into my coaching and just have gone all in on them. And that in turn, I feel like gets them to go all in on themselves. And with me, by being willing to do anything and be able to push themselves harder. One thing that I just feel like, this is something that I think Matt is excellent at. I don't think there's anybody that's better than him at getting people to work way harder than they thought they previously could. And that's something that I've really picked up and I feel like I'm getting good at, is getting people to go harder than they thought they could. And I just mean from strictly working harder. That's been a big attribute to the success that we've had.
How far do you want to take this coaching thing in terms of what are some of like your long-term visions or goals or aspirations, Justin, for coaching for yourself specifically? I know you're a part of Camp Jansen. You guys are going to continue to grow Camp Jansen, but for you, you said there's other business endeavors at some point you'd like to pursue. But what do you want to accomplish as a coach? How far do you want to take this? What do you have set for yourself personally as a coach in terms of some of those loftier goals for the future?
Yeah. So, from a competition aspect, like I want to continue to attract and build athletes that are far better than I ever could be, and take the people who have been blessed with the genetic component and take them as high as they possibly can. I love coaching amateurs. I love helping them win their pro card and getting their professional status. That's like a huge thing for me, because I know how I felt when I got my pro card. And I remember, being able to have my medal and my pro card that they give you at the show in my hand when I wrapped my arms around Matt and just said, thank you. And I want to be there for all of them. And I've been there in person for every athlete that I've turned pro besides one. And that was because she was in the UK. So I couldn't obviously be there. But so I love that. And I would love to win, several pro cards every year and have that be something that I can really, like, that feather in my cap. Within that, I want to then be able to help those same people take it to the next level. I want to have athletes that are competitive in pro shows, winning pro shows, competing at prestigious ones and doing very well, like the New York Pro or the Arnold, or even any of the ones overseas, like the Arnold UK, or obviously the Olympia at some point down the road. Like, I would love to be able to help 212 and open pros at the Olympia, or classic guys, or I've had a ton of success with women. So being able to help specifically, like MND, my girlfriend, like obviously I'm helping her now, and I would love for her to be able, like, next season, I think she has every capability of being competitive and winning any show that she enters to qualify for the Olympia. And then from there, just taking it to the next level for her. That's why it's been so rewarding to have her here and be able to look at her in person all the time, and to be able to make sure that her training is perfect, and just also give her the opportunities that she needs being here in the United States rather than in Switzerland. She has opportunities and access to things here that she previously didn't have, mainly being Revive Gym. Like, she has access to the best gym in Florida now. So, I want to, win a pro show with her next year and get her to the Olympia. And every year, I just want to be able to have a team of Olympians that I get to help each year. I very much look up to Matt, and I bring him up a lot because he is my role model. He's one of my best friends, and he's my mentor. So, he's very invested in me, and I'm very invested in him. And I just want to be able to get to that status. Like, that's the status that I want to be able to get to. To be a, I don't care if I'm a household name or not. It's not about people knowing me. I want the bodybuilders to know who I am and know that like I have what it takes to be able to help them and get them to that next level. So I guess the answer to that would be I want to take it up as high as I possibly can. You know, to win Olympia titles would be a dream come true for me as a coach.
What, in your estimation, makes a great coach, specifically within the bodybuilding community, kind of like a prep coach, not necessarily a football coach? I think there's a lot of, overlap, obviously, but specifically in your estimation, even like Matt, right? Like what makes Matt great? What makes somebody great as a prep coach from your point of view, Justin?
So, I mean, the basics would be, and these are the more obvious ones that you would have to possess, whether, if you're going to try and get to that upper echelon level of coaching, is, the knowledge to know how to apply things and when to apply them, but also having a set of eyes that can be able to relay that information back to your brain. And so like, I need to be able to look at things and be able to know when to apply certain things and be able to know the difference between, the differences in each athlete on, hey, when is this full for this athlete? Is this flat for this athlete? How much harder can they actually push? Also being able to tap into the psychology side of things and being able to get the athlete to work harder than they previously thought they could. But having them feel comfortable enough within you and building this tremendous system of communication where you can have them provide you the proper biofeedback to make the right choice. So it's a set of expectations that a really good coach will set, and also setting a foundation for how we are going to do things. Not so much of like the pharmacology of things, which yes, that's wildly important, but being able to communicate with your coach and communicate with your athlete so that way they can provide you the feedback that you need to be able to do your job at the highest level. Those are some attributes that I think really separate the best in the world from, just some of the really good ones in the world. They have their, and it's not so much about having their system, because all coaches have a system, but it's also about being able to know when to be adaptable and have their system adapt to the athlete, given their circumstances, their accessibility to certain things, how their body responds to things, what the level of fatigue that they can manage and handle before things start to go the other direction. And again, just knowing when to push and when to pull back, those are crucial. And if you can master those things, which that's a lot easier said than done, you will be a good coach, regardless of who you work with, whether it's the genetic elite or again, whether it's just, the young kid that's getting ready for his first show at your local gym. Doesn't matter.
So you said earlier, and I've noticed this on your Instagram, that you've had some great success with female competitors here recently. From everything that I've learned or heard from other coaches that I've had on the podcast and just kind of checking things out on social media, there's obviously a difference between coaching, training a female and a male. Why do you think you've had so much success recently with females, and what are some of those differences in terms of the specifics of coaching, training a female from a male and vice versa?
So that's a great question, and it's hard to answer in like a blanket type of way, mainly because even within women, there's obviously differences within all of them. Yes, they are different than men. So from a pharmacology standpoint, you have to make adjustments. You have to know what they can manage and what they can't manage. I also definitely think like a less is more approach with them, but knowing when you can be more aggressive during times. And again, for women, especially from, trying to manage side effects with them, dosage and duration is the two things that you have to be mindful of. You can push dosage a little bit more if the duration is on the lower end of the spectrum, but you can't have them both be high at the same time. And I don't like speaking in gross generalities, obviously, because yes, you can do whatever you really want, but again, the more exposure that you have, the more risk you potentially can take on. Knowing when to pull back on women is also going to be a big attribute, because they typically don't manage stress the same way that men do. And I don't mean that like they get highly stressed out and they like freak out. That's not what I mean. I mean, a body can handle only so much stress before, again, it starts to go the opposite direction. So knowing when to say, hey, let's take a few days off from cardio, let's bump calories for a few days, and let's pull some of your outside stressors down and like let your body just kind of have almost like a reset. So I wouldn't necessarily call that a full-on diet break, but it's kind of almost like a miniature version of that. Basically, the goal is cortisol management with them to a pretty high extent. And that's just something that I've gotten much better at this year. I've been very fortunate to have some really, really good female athletes this year. All of the ones that I thought had pro potential this year have turned pro. So there hasn't been one that has not gotten their pro card at some point. It took a couple of them more than one try, but on the second try they got it. So, and I think a part of it is obviously knowing how to work the female body within from a hormonal standpoint too. And that has been something that I've spent a lot of time trying to learn from, again, those same people that I mentioned before, my mentors and the people that I will bounce ideas off. And also just trying to be a little bit more creative with how we are getting their body to do what we want without it necessarily feeling like we're pushing it overly, like just trying to exert too much and then having their body start to fight us. So once the body feels like it's being overly pushed is when it will start to put the brakes on. You want to stay in homeostasis. Your body wants to be in homeostasis as much as possible. So being overly aggressive and, quote unquote, starving them into shape the way that you can get away with that with men a lot easier. You can push them, you can be more aggressive, you can kind of starve them a little bit longer before they will start to do the same thing. But that's not my approach. My approach is very regular refeeding or periods of overfeeding. I do tend to try and do a little bit of a longer prep with women because of the fact that they typically need a little bit more time and their rate of loss is just not the same. So a crash diet on a woman usually doesn't work out very well in comparison to a man. Now, we ultimately don't want to do either for a man or a woman, but that's just kind of like my approach. A little bit longer of a prep while trying to make sure that we can keep their basal metabolic rate as high as possible. These are very similar principles, though, that you can apply to men as well. I think the difference is mainly managing their stress and their fatigue at the highest level. So that way they can exert full energy into whatever they're doing, whether that's their cardio, whether that's their training, and also making sure that they are prioritizing their recovery. And so because it's easy for women to neglect that with other things that they have going on in their life, especially if they're maybe a mother or a devoted girlfriend or something like that. Life stressors do come into play. And that's where I think being able to tap into the psychology of the athlete really can help you and benefit you as a coach to know exactly where that athlete's coming to you from and the state in which they're coming to you from. They might not have an overly stressful job, but they might have a very, very stressful home life. And this can, again, be attributed to a male as well. But again, it's just a little bit more crucial to manage these things within women. So knowing those things and being able to communicate with them and know how to manage their cortisol, their stress, and their fatigue as much as possible, I think has really been beneficial for the ladies that I've put on stage this year.
Okay, two more things I want to touch on, then I'm gonna let you go here, Justin. You've brought up your girlfriend a couple times, and like you said, and I've seen it too on Instagram, you guys posting pictures and training together and stuff like that. Now, there's been a lot of stuff recently I've seen on Instagram in terms of some coaches just being bums in terms of, males coaches and female clients and just some stupid stuff, right? How do you balance bodybuilding, coaching, having a significant other, and then, also tying that into being a male coach and having female clients and just having those boundaries, not crossing lines? Like, you kind of get what I'm talking about. I want you to really be honest with us, because I feel like this is something we need more light shed on within the bodybuilding coaching community. So just talk to us about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a good bit of light has been shed on it recently, actually, through Instagram and, people being more comfortable talking about it. I think you said the word that it needs to be in play at all times, which is boundaries. And then holding yourself to just a high level of professionalism. You know, like I value my career way too much to ever risk anything. Also, you know, with Emma and Dean being here too, there's, you know, a level of respect that you need to have for your spouse as well. So not spending too much time on that, just because it's like, kind of seems like if you have a reasonable moral compass, it shouldn't be something that you have an issue with. But you know, we are imperfect people, so like I can understand, I guess, to an extent. But you know, at the end of the day, is, you know, making sure that you're treating all clients with the utmost respect and always having their best interests in mind. You know, and sometimes you have to be comfortable giving them that hard talk, where it's like, it might not be something that they want to hear, but it's something that they need to hear. And I think that that's what keeps things very professional. You know what I mean? As much as I want to be friendly with all of my athletes and have them be able to look at me as, you know, more than just their coach, but as a friend and somebody who cares about them. At the end of the day, I always care about them. You know, whether we have a glamorous friendship or not is another thing. You know, you're not going to be friends with all of your clients. It's just not possible. But not all, and not every relationship is meant for that. And just like you're not friends with every person that you deal with on your day-to-day life. Some people are acquaintances. Some people hire you as a coach, and it's very transactional with them. You know, it's like they are paying me to do a service for them, and they expect me to do my job to my utmost ability. And that is my contractual obligation. Yes, of course. And from a professional standpoint, that's what I'm always going to do. Now, whether we develop a friendship along that road, then so be it. Some of which I have and some of which I haven't. And I also have definitely made some friendships within bodybuilding that are like lifelong. You know, like they would be in my wedding type of friendships. And I can say the same for me with that. And that's the beauty of it. You know, like it exposes you to a lot of people, and you get to meet a ton of people, and you can influence a lot of people in a positive way if you choose to do so. And unfortunately, like you had mentioned, there are some that are doing it in a negative way. And at the end of the day, you know, I feel like I was raised with good moral values, and you know, can thank my parents for that. That I try to be a positive impact on every single person. So it's just about maintaining a level of professionalism. And at the end of the day, some of coaching is trying to give as high level customer service as you possibly can. You know, being adequate with your responses, making as far as from a timing perspective, as well as from how much time you give to your athletes, as far as each athlete goes. You know, not playing the favoritism game. You know, because at the end of the day, everybody is still paying you for your time, and I want to make sure that everybody still feels. I want everyone to feel like they're underpaid for my service, meaning like that the service is that good for them that they would be willing to pay more than what I actually ask for. Because again, it's not about the money for me. It's about the opportunity to help as many good people as I can. So that's how I look at it. And again, this is my dream job, and I'm not willing to throw that away for anybody.
Well said, man. Okay, last thing I want to touch on is something that you brought up earlier with your own eating. You said that you've been drinking a lot of calories, right? Now,
Yeah.
I want to get to this because we have Hunter Labrada that's put out videos with him drinking a lot of his calories. We know Brett Wilkins put out videos, him drinking a lot of his calories, specifically in the off season. So, I mean, I just want you to talk to us, and from your professional perspective, share with us, because you've got some people in the camp of like, you got to eat everything. Solid food's better. Then you have the people that are like, hey, you can drink some of your calories. There's always this back and forth. So professionally speaking, what say you?
Well, I'm on the team that you can drink some of your calories. So, you know, and that's something that I've learned from the coaches that I've worked with as an athlete. I've drank calories with every coach that I've ever had, but it's to a point. So the caloric intake for me, I have to hit a certain amount with my athletes as far as like how much food that they're eating per se, that before I will, like, I guess, quote unquote, reward them with liquid calories. So, and for me, it's like, I like Naked Juice. So like that brand, Naked Juice, it's because it's like legitimate. It's not like concentrate juice. So I at least feel somewhat better about the fact that it's from a higher quality source. I've mentioned, you know, earlier that I drink Gatorade. You know, at least it has electrolytes. It's not just sugar. And at the end of the day, it is a lot of sugar. And so, you know, I do the best that I can with what I have to work with. And sometimes you've got to make do with what you can. And, you know, for some people, 300 grams of rice per meal is a cakewalk. Okay, great. Let's bump it to 400. You know what I mean? And it's individual per person. It's like once they get to a point where they're like, I can't stomach another bite of whole food, is then when I might say, okay, well, we still need to be able to push some calories. You're not getting too fat, or you're not getting fat at all, really. So then it's like, well, let's keep pushing the food up because your body is obviously accepting the nutrients. And then that's when we'll put in some liquid calories. I don't drink a ton of protein shakes. Like, I don't think that doing whey like as often as some guys are doing it is really all that conducive for their success. I like to eat my protein as much as I can. And for me, that's a lot of meat and eggs, a lot of red meat and eggs. Those are the two that work the best for me personally. And I've also had the best results as far as my cholesterol numbers by utilizing those. And I could get into a whole debate on like if those actually cause bad cholesterol or not, but I'll spare you guys another 2 hours on this podcast. So, I definitely drink calories. I have carbohydrates in pretty much any meal that I'm sitting down eating. I'm usually drinking some form of carbohydrate as well. If I leave the house and go anywhere for an extended period of time, whether it's to the mall or anything, I always bring some type of liquid calories with me that are just carbohydrates. Again, it's just simple sugars really for the most part that I will be sipping on throughout that time. Not only to just make sure that I'm staying properly hydrated, but two, just to make sure that I still have at least some calories coming in. So I'm definitely on the team that you can drink some of your calories. And honestly, all of the coaches that I pal around with and that I, kind of bump shoulders with and will talk to about things and bounce ideas off, all of us at some point are drinking calories. All of them. I don't really know that many bodybuilding purists anymore that are like, you have to eat all of your calories. You have to eat the majority of your calories, but there are ways to get some liquid calories in.
Cool. Justin, number 3, in terms of your appearance on Behind the Muscle podcast, didn't disappoint, just like the other two, man. I really do appreciate, man, you coming on, catching us up with where you're at with life, coaching, bodybuilding. Really quick, before I do a quick outro, any final thoughts, any final words? I'm going to turn it over to you. Give us your Instagram. Anything else you want to shout out, go for it, and then I'll end it.
Yeah, my Instagram is J_Jacoby32. I try and be as active on there as possible as far as responding to people, as it just seems like that seems to be the way that people primarily like to communicate as far as reaching out, whether it's to have a question or for coaching services or to just kind of shoot the shit. I'm totally fine with it. I always try and answer you guys, as many of you as I can per day. So I also want to say thank you for all of those that have not only reached out from, when I went pro to even now, just asking questions. And I have, I'll have people that are even in prep and they have a coach and they'll just send me pictures and be like, hey, what do you think? And I mean, I'll answer, you might not like the answer, but I'll answer, and I do try and be as respectful as possible and make sure that I don't try and overstep at any given point. You guys, if anyone ever needs me for anything, by all means, I'm always accessible for you guys. I'm always looking to help more people. But besides that, I just appreciate all of the support that's really come not only my way, but the other guys within Camp Jansen, as well as we've all definitely seen, a big influx in, support and, people coming in and really wanting to be a part of what we're creating here and this culture within our team. Because that is what it is. It is a culture that we are trying to create that is very Alabama-esque when it comes to in terms of college football as a reference. We want to be a program that attracts people that want to not only better themselves, but also want to compete at the highest level. So the support and the people that have come and wanted to be a part of this and are proud to be here, to all of those people, we say thank you very much for the support.
Okay, I have to ask you this. I'm sorry, I've got one more question. One more. I had it written down and then I forgot about it and it just popped in my head. Okay, from the USAs and North Americans, what has been the most impressive open men's bodybuilding physique that you've seen so far this year? Now, I know a lot of the guys are Matt Jansen, Camp Jansen athletes, so there might be some biases, but just from your honest perspective, what's the best physique so far you've seen at the pro qualifiers?
That's a good question, man. So for this season, Stu at Nationals was really impressive. Obviously winning the overall, and then I got to see him compete. I didn't go to USA's, but getting to see him compete in person at Tampa when he did his pro debut only a few weeks later, that was really impressive. And he definitely looked like he belonged up there. He's probably the only guy that I would say that really could walk off the amateur stage and into a pro lineup like that and be able to compete at that level. Obviously, my good friend Dom Triboline at North Americans was wacky impressive. That was like a slam dunk type of performance for him, and he came back with like a vengeance to get that win. With last year, like he seemingly had it and somehow fell to third. So I'm very happy for him. He's also been a big supporter of mine. I coach his girlfriend, by the way, so like he's a super nice stand-up guy. But the guy that ended up winning the overall there was, I believe, Austin Stout's client, Felix was his name. Norman. He was really impressive, man. Like that guy's another one that I don't know if he could walk off the amateur stage and go right into a pro lineup quite like Stu did, as his muscle just has a little bit different look to him. Like Stu's like big, round and bubbly everywhere. That guy can be definitely good if he can add a little bit more size. But so can Dom Triboline. So that was also really impressive. So, and I know Nationals is going to be a really, really big show with a lot of good guys in it. So, we'll see. And, I'm pulling for some of my Camp Jansen guys that are going to be there because obviously Matt's got like a stable of bodybuilders. So the big boys at least. So, I'm pulling for those guys and I'll be there to be able to see it live. But if I had to pick one, I think Stu is probably it. I mean, he's very impressive. And he's very young too. Yeah. So he's got a lot.
He's got a great personality, man. I've had him on a couple of times, really fun, and what a bright future for him for sure. So yeah,
we've chatted a bit on Instagram. He's
a smart aleck. He's a smart aleck.
Yeah, he's a smart ass is what he is. But I like him and I'm a fan of his. So
me too.
So good hats off to him for a great year.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks, Justin. I'm just going to do a quick outro and then I'll let you go here. Okay. All of you who are tuning in to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you quickly. If you have not done so already, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Take this episode with Justin, share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Justin, tag Behind the Muscle podcast so that we know you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.